Who are the most despicable criminals around? Let's find out. Starting with number 4, Queenpins of Crime. Michelle Mack, a housewife living in a lavish mansion outside San Diego, ran one of the most sophisticated retail theft rings in the country. Known as the California Girls, this group targeted high-end stores such as Ultra Beauty, Sephora, and other luxury brands, stealing millions of dollars in merchandise over more than a decade. According to CNBC, Mack lived in a $2.75 million mansion, complete with a vineyard and chapel. She and her husband Kenneth used the estate as their base of their operations. From this luxurious hideout, Mack directed a team of about a dozen women who traveled across multiple states, stealing cosmetics and other high-end items. These goods were then resold on Amazon through a store Mack set up, generating millions of dollars in revenue. The operation was so successful that in 2022 alone, it brought in nearly $2 million. Mack's crew was well coordinated, often clearing entire shelves of products in one go. They used designer handbags such as Louis Vuitton totes to smuggle the stolen goods out of the stores. Mack covered all their travel expenses, including airfare and car rentals, to make sure that they could hit tons of stores across the country without drawing too much attention. The group targeted not just California, but also states such as Florida, Texas, and Massachusetts, committing their crimes across the nation in a highly organized manner. We guess you could say it was organized crime. Despite all the risks of such an operation, Mack lived a life of conspicuous luxury. She was often seen driving around in her Tesla, wearing designer sunglasses and carrying expensive bags. But beneath this glamorous exterior was a criminal enterprise. The scale of Mack's operation eventually attracted the attention of law enforcement, who began to track the activities of her group. The beginning of the end came in December of 2023, when federal agents raided Mack's mansion. What they found was shocking. Nearly $400,000 worth of stolen goods stored in her garage, which had been transformed into a mini department store. Shelves were lined with beauty products, designer sunglasses, and high-end bags, all meticulously organized and ready to be shipped to unsuspecting customers. Mack's downfall was swift. The raid led to the arrest of Mack, her husband, and several other members of the California Girls. In total, Mack faced 140 felony charges, including conspiracy to commit organized retail theft, grand theft, and receiving stolen property. Her Amazon storefront, which had netted nearly $8 million since its inception in 2012, was shut down, and her once thriving operation was dismantled. As her legal troubles mounted, Mack's life of luxury started falling apart. Her mansion was put on the market, and she was seen searching for much more modest accommodations. Even a beach trip with her daughter, which might have once been a carefree outing, was now tinged with the stress of her impending trial and the likelihood of a lengthy prison sentence. Mack's case is just one of many in a growing trend in the United States: organized retail theft. This type of crime has become a pretty serious issue for retailers, costing billions of dollars annually and forcing stores to implement more stringent security measures. The rise of online marketplaces like Amazon has made it easier for criminals to fence their stolen goods, selling their stuff often at steep discounts that attract unsuspecting buyers. The sophistication of Mack's operation in particular set it apart from typical retail theft rings. Her network operated like a well-oiled machine, with each member playing a specific role, from the thieves who stole the goods to those who helped package and ship them. The profits allowed Mack to maintain her luxurious lifestyle for years, but ultimately, her greed led to her undoing, since her operation was so big. After her arrest, Mack eventually took a plea deal and was sentenced to 5 years and 5 months in state prison back in July of 2024. Her husband, Kenneth Mack, also took a plea deal for his multiple charges, including organized retail theft and conspiracy. It's crazy that she and her crew got away with this for 10 years, right? It wasn't like she was just ripping off a few Walmarts and CVS's or something. This was a massive operation, and it's not like she had an extensive background in criminal enterprises. She was running it out of her garage. It just goes to show you never really know what's going on next door. Number 3. Delusions of Grandeur. Gavin Plumb, a security guard from the UK, was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 16 years for plotting to abduct and harm TV presenter Holly Willoughby. Plumb had a history of attempted kidnappings, developed a disturbing obsession with Miss Willoughby, which eventually led him to plan a horrific crime. Plumb's plan was both elaborate and deeply disturbing. He wanted to break into Willoughby's London home in the middle of the night, using chloroform to subdue her and her husband, TV producer Dan Baldwin. Once inside inside, Plumb planned to take Willoughby to a secluded location where he would carry out unspeakable acts before ultimately ending everything for her. The details of his plan were so graphic and depraved that they were deemed too disturbing to be fully disclosed in court, if that tells you anything about this guy's mentality. Thankfully, Plumb's plot was uncovered before he could act on it. He had been talking with an undercover police officer from the US who was operating in an online chat room called Abduct Lovers, which is pretty much just insanely weird. Yeah, Rule 34, but still, this is a bit much. Plumb, who was unaware of the officer's true identity, shared his plans in explicit detail, even going as far as to show the officer a video of the restraint kit he had put together. The kit included hand and ankle shackles, metal cable ties, and other items intended for his twisted fantasy. The undercover officer, who was working with the FBI, immediately recognized the seriousness of Plumb's intentions and alerted British authorities. Police quickly raided Plumb's home, where they found the restraint kit and other evidence linking him to the plot. Plumb was arrested and later tried at Chelmsford Crown Court. During the trial, the prosecution presented evidence of Plumb's long-standing obsession with Willoughby, which lasted more than a decade. This obsession had escalated over time, culminating in the horrifying plan to abduct her and end her life. Prosecution also revealed that Plumb had a history of similar crimes, including attempted kidnappings in 2006 and 2008. In these earlier incidents, Plumb had targeted young women using threats and physical force in attempts to kidnap them. Plumb's defense argued that his plan was never realistic due to his physical limitations and that it was merely a dark fantasy. However, the court, and pretty much anyone else who heard about this case, found this argument unconvincing. The judge said that while Plumb's plan may have been impractical, he clearly believed it was feasible and was actively seeking accomplices to help him carry it out. He had also shown that he was willing to actually attempt it since he had in the past. So there's that. The impact of Plumb's actions on Willoughby has been profound. She stepped down from her role on This Morning, a show she had been a part of for 14 years, and has described the experience as life-changing. Court acknowledged the devastating effect this crime had on her both personally and professionally. In his sentencing, the judge called Plumb's actions particularly sadistic and degrading. He emphasized that while Plumb's plan may not have come to fruition, the intent was clear and the threat to Willoughby was very real. Plumb will serve at least 16 years in prison before he's eligible for parole. Cases like this always present a tough moral dilemma. So this guy clearly had plans to do something, though he claimed it was just a fantasy, but was online talking about it with other people who share the same proclivities. While most of these people participating in this chat will likely never do the things they claim to want to do, should we as a society even allow such chat rooms and forums to exist? If these people aren't able to indulge in these types of fantasies, would that possibly stop stuff like this from actually happening? Or are these types of forums kind of a pressure release valve that stops some people from acting out? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Number 2, the unlicensed procedure. Kavonceya Iman Cornelius from Salisbury, North Carolina, ended up with some serious consequences for actions that led to tragic outcomes. Cornelius, a transgender woman, was involved in performing illegal silicone injections on others within the community. This dangerous practice ultimately resulted in the tragic passing of a 19-year-old teen, Symone Marie Jones, born Eugene Jones II. Symone had traveled to Cornelius's home seeking what she thought was a safe procedure. Unfortunately, Cornelius wasn't a licensed medical professional, and the silicone she used wasn't of medical grade. Shortly after receiving the injections, Symone suffered severe complications, leading to her untimely passing. The silicone had made its way into her bloodstream, reaching her heart and lungs, which led to fatal internal damage. Symone's mother, Sandra Harmon, had always supported her daughter's transition, but had pleaded with her not to trust unlicensed individuals for such procedures. Sadly, Symone's desire to further her transition led her to Cornelius, who had falsely presented herself as offering concierge service tied to a legitimate plastic surgeon. Sadly, this tragic incident wasn't isolated. Cornelius had been providing similar services to others within the community for years, often charging between $500 and $1,200 per session, depending on the amount of silicone used. Another victim, Kenia Ebony Bernard, had received injections from Cornelius on multiple occasions. Following her last procedure, Bernard experienced severe breathing issues. Doctors later confirmed that the silicone had entered her veins and traveled to her lungs, posing a significant health risk. Bernard's situation, while alarming, thankfully didn't have tragic consequences, but it did demonstrate the dangers of these unlicensed procedures. She eventually reported her experience answers to the police after discovering that Symone had passed away under similar circumstances. Bernard, who had trusted Cornelius for years, was shocked to learn of the risks she had unknowingly taken. In court, Cornelius accepted an Alford plea for involuntary manslaughter, a type of plea acknowledging that the evidence against her was strong, but still not admitting guilt. Which is weird that such a plea actually exists. If you're truly innocent, it's weird to be like, yeah, I know all the evidence points to me being guilty, but I'm not. So I'll just say I'm guilty so you shut up. Like, that makes sense in relationships to be like, fine, whatever, I'm sorry, but not in legal proceedings, right? Anyway, she was sentenced to 15 to 27 months in prison. The lesson here is that while cosmetic surgery is very expensive, you do pay for what you get. So when it comes to your body and lasting consequences, it's probably not a great idea to go bargain hunting and get procedures done in someone's house. Those procedures are expensive for a reason. When you're quoted these crazy prices, you're paying a lot more than just a surgeon who's being greedy. You're paying for your own safety. That's not something you should decide to be cheap about. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here to find out how this guy scammed over $100 million. Number 1. Greedy news. Haley Matthews, a well-known local TV and radio presenter from the UK, was sentenced to 27 months in prison after embezzling £120,000 from her mother, Janice Matthews, who suffered from dementia. Matthews, entrusted as the power of attorney over her mother's financial affairs, began siphoning off funds shortly after taking control in 2019. Over 3 years, she spent the money on luxury items and personal indulgences, including a Mulberry handbag and thousands of dollars in online purchases. The court found her actions deliberate and repeated, with a severe impact on her family. Matthews used her mother's money to fund a lavish lifestyle. She splurged on a $1,700 Mulberry handbag, swimming lessons for her children, and made $48,000 in cash withdrawals. She didn't stop there either, racking up $17,800 in Amazon purchases, $1,500 on eBay, and over $6,000 with high-end retailers such as Harvey Nichols and The White Company. She also indulged in everyday luxuries, spending significant sums on food deliveries from Greg's, Deliveroo, and treats from Hotel Chocolat. Concerns about Matthews' handling of her mother's finances arose after Janice Matthews passed away in 2021. Her sister Danielle noticed discrepancies in the estate and questioned the amount she was supposed to receive. However, Haley was dismissive, further raising suspicions. The family eventually got a hold of copies of Janice's bank statements and discovered a substantial increase in cash withdrawals after their mother was hospitalized. Of course, this was tremendously suspicious and led them to dig deeper, discovering that nearly $130,000 was missing, prompting them to involve the police. Matthews was arrested early in 2023 after financial irregularities were reported. During police interviews, she confessed to misusing her mother's money, claiming she was in a difficult place emotionally and overcompensated by spending money she shouldn't have. Of course, the court didn't accept these excuses. Her defense lawyer described her situation as complex, pointing out her role as a mother and the impact imprisonment would have on her family. Despite these arguments, the judge ruled that imprisonment was the only appropriate outcome for her crimes. Following her sentencing, Matthews' fall from grace was swift. She was a former presenter of such shows such as Live at 5 on STV2 and a radio personality on various stations, and her career is now in ruins. She had garnered attention for her interviews with celebrities and participation in charitable events, but these accomplishments were overshadowed by her criminal actions. Matthews seemed to be more locally famous than nationally famous, but the fact that she worked in the entertainment industry means she was probably fairly well off. So, there was no real reason for her to steal other than just being greedy and trying to live beyond her means, which makes stealing from her vulnerable mother even worse. They had money, or they had jobs, or they had both. Did they really need to do these crimes? Let's start it off with number 4, Breaking Bad. Danielle Stafford is a young engineer from England. She was stopped for speeding. When the police approached her, she quickly handed them several bags of let's just call it the green stuff, and told them she wanted to come clean. Sensing something wasn't right, the cops searched her car, found more illegal things, and arrested her. On the way to jail, the officers noticed she was fidgeting with her pants, and Danielle admitted she had 11 more illegal stuff hidden down her joggers. It turned out to be 56 more bags. Stafford, cunning as she tried to be, attempted to play the victim card. hoping to fool the authorities. But her charade didn't last long. Right after she got busted, her phone went wild with incessant calls and messages related to the trade, leaving no doubt about her involvement. As the investigation unfolded, law enforcement stumbled upon a staggering 26,917-pound stash of cash hidden craftily throughout Stafford's home. That's not all. They also uncovered a treasure trove of contraband worth a jaw-dropping 33,600 pounds, laying bare the vast extent of her empire. As if that wasn't enough, a thorough search of Stafford's residence revealed a glass jar crammed with an eye-watering 17,600 pounds worth of even harder contraband. Additional evidence, including grass and pills, pointed to an intricate business run right from the comfort of her home. Danielle splurged on lavish luxuries like a swanky second home, 9 flashy watches, and not just 1 or 2, but 3 ridiculously expensive Louis Vuitton handbags. Danielle tried to explain them away by passing them off as fakes or family gifts, but her lies were swiftly dismissed by Judge Mark Burry, who saw right through her. In a stunning twist, Stafford abruptly flipped the script, surprising everyone in the courtroom by changing her pleas from denial to guilty on 4 charges. This sudden turn of events injected a fresh dose of intrigue into an already riveting case. Desperate to shift blame and save her skin, Stafford pointed fingers at a shadowy figure from Liverpool, trying to paint him as the mastermind behind her sprawling empire. But wait, there's more! Stafford had another outrageous tale to tell. She spun a wild story, insisting that her family had a strange habit of stashing wads of cash all over their house instead of trusting banks. And guess who they trusted with safeguarding all that dough? You guessed it, none other than Danielle herself. During the trial, the prosecution revealed that Stafford had evolved from a lowly cannabis peddler to a high-profile Class A dealer. Her ability to fly under the radar had allowed her to amass considerable wealth. However, her luck finally ran out, and they handed her a sobering 7.5-year prison sentence. Danielle's decision to go all Walter White is strange, since being an engineer meant she likely wasn't hurting for money. Maybe she should have stuck to driving trains instead, so she could get back on the right track. Number 3. The valedictorian crime boss. Joel Ortiz was a promising college student who was high school valedictorian. He was a brilliant young man with a bright and promising future. But Ortiz had different ideas about his future, and he employed his charm and ingenuity to orchestrate audacious heists by stealing over $5 million in crypto. According to an investigation conducted by Vice Motherboard, Joel employed various techniques to gain access to his target's phones. One method was SIM swapping, a ploy where he would impersonate his victims and convince phone carriers to grant him control over their numbers. SIM swapping opened the door to a treasure trove of sensitive information, allowing Ortiz to seize control of bank accounts, social media profiles, and other digital assets. Victims would find themselves locked out of their lives, while Ortiz reveled in the spoils of his ill-gotten gains. But SIM swapping was just one weapon in Ortiz's arsenal. He delved even deeper into the realm of deception with the port-out scam. Leveraging the vulnerability of two-factor authentication, he manipulated carriers into transferring his victims' phone numbers to new devices he controlled. With access to their two-factor authentication codes, Ortiz bypassed the line of defense for his victims' online accounts. He seized control, leaving them powerless in the wake of his attacks. Each theft grew his empire, and he made a fortune in crypto. Joel Ortiz's criminal enterprise reached new heights when he set his sights on Consensus, a renowned crypto conference. With a clever mix of social engineering and technical prowess, Ortiz stole a massive amount of crypto during the event. One incident that garnered attention during Ortiz's spree involved an anonymous entrepreneur who fell victim to Joel's attacks. The man became a prime target as Ortiz manipulated carriers and executed SIM swaps to gain control of his phone number. This allowed him to bypass security measures and steal his crypto accounts. Ortiz went to great lengths to cover his tracks, but his relentless harassment of one victim's wife and daughter ultimately became his undoing. The harassment caught the attention of law enforcement, triggering a series of events that would lead to his downfall. The police began tracking down Ortiz's digital footprint. They retraced his steps, piecing together a mosaic of evidence that would bring him to justice. The breakthrough came when investigators found Ortiz's email, providing them with invaluable insights into his identity and activities. As authorities dug deeper, they discovered a series of YouTube videos that Ortiz made explaining how to use zero-day exploits. With each discovery, the police identified more victims who had fallen prey to Ortiz's schemes. Ortiz's activities reverberated throughout online communities, including platforms like OG Users. This notorious forum served as a hub for hackers and individuals engaged in illicit activities. Here, Ortiz's actions and exploits gained notoriety, further exposing the depths of his criminal endeavors. Finally, in Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, as Joel prepared to fly to an EDM festival dressed from head to toe in Gucci, the police moved in and arrested him. Ortiz's reign of cyber crime came crashing down. In the courtroom, the culmination of Ortiz's gripping saga took center stage. A plea of no contest echoed through the room. The judge broke the silence by sentencing Ortiz to 10 years in prison. Number 2. Cody Easterday's Ghost Cattle. On December 10th, 2021, Gail Easterday, a 79-year-old farmer from Pasco, Washington, veered his Dodge Ram onto a highway off-ramp, entering a confusing stretch of road. Ignoring warning signs, he drove on the ramp and collided with a vehicle driven by one of his very own delivery drivers on the interstate. The impact was immediate and devastating, resulting in the destruction of both vehicles. Easterday lost his life in the crash, leaving investigators perplexed as they sought to unravel the circumstances of the tragic accident. It was an intentionally fatal crash, and the news sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community surrounding Easterday Farms. Initially, nobody had any answers, but the devastating truth soon emerged. Gail's son Cody had orchestrated a colossal cattle fraud, selling hundreds of thousands of non-existent cows. Cody's elaborate scheme, which he saw as a lifeline for the struggling farm, quickly unraveled, leaving financial ruin. The troubles that plagued Easterday Farms were far from simple. The weight of financial burdens, mismanagement, and bad bets had pushed the farm to the brink of collapse. Suddenly thrust into the spotlight, Cody faced the daunting task of saving his family's legacy from complete ruin. The once proud community now found themselves grappling with doubt and regret, their association with the Easterday name tarnished. Cody's plight was further complicated by his dealings with Tyson, powerful player in the cattle industry. Tyson's influence loomed large, making it an uphill battle for Cody to salvage what was left of his family's farm. Amidst the mounting challenges, a massive invoice arrived from Tyson, casting a dark cloud over Easterday Farms. This invoice represented a staggering financial burden, exasperating the farm's already crippling debt. The sheer magnitude of this financial blow threatened to push Cody and his farm to the edge of oblivion, intensifying the obstacles he faced. Ranching itself is a complex and demanding endeavor, managing livestock, navigating unpredictable market conditions, and contending with the fickle forces of nature are all inherent complexities of the trade. Such challenges demand profound knowledge, experience, and resources to navigate successfully. Yet, the system was rigged against Cody from the start. The cattle industry's structure, with its intricate web of contracts, pricing mechanisms, and market dynamics, heavily favor corporate behemoths. The playing field was tilted, leaving farmers like Cody vulnerable to exploitation and manipulation. Despite his tireless efforts, Cody found himself pitted against overwhelming odds within this skewed system. Formula contracting emerged as a particularly insidious aspect of Cody's struggles. In this cutthroat practice, industry giants like Tyson established predetermined formulas to dictate the prices ranchers receive for their livestock. Unfortunately, these formulas overwhelmingly favored the buyers, leaving ranchers with minimal negotiating power and vulnerable to devastating financial losses. Cody had little control over the prices he received for his cattle, exasperating his financial situation. So, he decided to hedge his bets, sell more cattle now, and hopefully the price of beef would go up. Could Cody then sell what he had at hopefully a better price, which would cover the new debt he took on from the cattle he didn't have? Desperate to alleviate the mounting pressure, Cody resorted to his risk bets that only deepened the farm's financial woes. Engaging in questionable forward billing, he claimed the existence of cattle he never had to secure funds. Tyson eventually uncovered the truth, discovering that 8 lots of cattle worth a staggering $5.3 million were nothing more than vapor. Cody admitted to invoicing for non-existent cattle and even for feed that was never provided. Sadly, it was the revelation of this fraud that led to the elder Easterday's tragic decision. The downfall of Easterday Farms reverberated far beyond the confines of its gates, impacting employees, the local community, and the agricultural industry at large. Job security became uncertain, and the loss of this once reputable family-owned operation sent shockwaves through the local economy. Cody's story epitomized the uphill battle faced by small-scale farmers in an industry heavily skewed toward corporate giants. The repercussions of Cody's actions were immense, amounting to a staggering $244 million bilked from Tyson. He now faced the full weight of legal consequences, pleading guilty to charges of wire fraud. As Easterday Farms grappled with severe financial strain, they were forced to sell their cherished ranch to repay their mounting debts. Cody's personal journey, following the legal proceedings, may remain shrouded in privacy, limited to those directly involved. However, it's clear that his actions and far-reaching consequences, penalties such as 20 years in prison, hefty fines, and the burden of restitution awaited him. Rebuilding his reputation and financial stability will prove to be an uphill battle as the shadows of his crimes loom large. Number 1. iSpoof. TJ Fletcher is a black hat tech entrepreneur from the UK, and he ran a website called iSpoof. iSpoof was an online fraud shop and served as a haven for criminals, allowing them to scam unsuspecting victims out of over £100 million. With the assistance of iSpoof's tools, fraudsters could disguise their phone calls, making them appear as trustworthy institutions like banks, tricking innocent people into emptying their hard-earned accounts. Fletcher's exploits were undeniably lucrative, as iSpoof raked in over £3.2 million in Bitcoin. Fletcher himself walked away with the majority of Bitcoin at approximately £2 million worth of Bitcoin at the time. At its peak, iSpoof had 59,000 users, with callers armed with the website's tools, targeting up to 20 unsuspecting victims every minute. However, it was in the UK and the US where the majority of these calls hit their mark. The scale of the operation is mind-boggling, with an estimated 200,000 individuals falling victim. TJ Fletcher's criminal record only added to the severity of his actions, with 18 convictions for 36 charges. Throughout the trial, it became clear that Fletcher lacked empathy for his victims. His expressions of remorse were nothing more than a facade, driven solely by regret for being caught rather than a concern for the damage he caused. Unveiling the operation behind iSpoof was no small feat. The Metropolitan Police embarked on an investigation dedicating 700 days of work to dismantle the website and bring its architects to justice. Finally, in a November arrest, Fletcher was apprehended and he pleaded guilty to 4 charges, encompassing the creation and supply of fraudulent materials, encouragement of criminal activity, possession, and transfer of illicit funds. As the gavel struck, Judge Sally Cahill delivered a resounding message. She highlighted the experiences endured by victims and the impact it had on their lives. With the sentence totaling 13 years and 4 months, the judge sought to reflect the gravity of Fletcher's offenses. TJ Fletcher, a mastermind in his own right, displayed a remarkable level of intellect throughout his criminal career. It's evident that his capabilities extended far beyond scamming, as he possessed the mind to pursue other ventures. However, instead of using his intelligence for positive things, Fletcher made the unfortunate choice to become a scammer. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather do. Go on a 3-day fast or run a marathon.